Thank you very much, Maria. Melissa?
Thank you so much, Maria, for those words. We really appreciate your leadership in the community and all you do for the chamber. So let's get this started. It is an honor for me to introduce the co-chair of the WOC. Just give me a second. The co-chair of the WOC, Elki Camacho. She is the principal and CEO of Elki Consulting. She sits on the board of the director of the Hudson County Chamber of Commerce, and she helped to make this happen this afternoon. So thank you so much, Elki, and I let you get started.
Great, thank you, Melissa. Okay, so, let's see. Are you advancing slides, Melissa? Melissa? All right, well, we'll start off. Thank you guys very much for coming. And we certainly appreciate you being here and we value your time. So this is what we're gonna get into today. We're gonna we had the brief introductions. Thank you both to Maria and to Melissa. We're gonna go who the WOC is. So we're really excited to be able to add this council to the value that the chamber provides to our community. And let's go back. Well, we're going to talk about who the WOC is. We're going to go through some of our speaker introductions. We're really excited for our presenters today. They're going to be really focusing on both internal and external elements addressing burnout. So we have a lot to look forward to. And in addition, we're going to have an open Q&A session. So some of the things that we ask in order to help this to move forward really smoothly, we ask that everyone hold their questions for the open Q&A session. So we'll have an open Q&A session. In the meantime, as questions arise, please jot them down in the chat so that we could answer them later on. If you have ideas for future topics that you would like to see spoken of, you can also add those into the chat. And as always, be fully present and enjoy the content. So briefly, who is the WOC? So we have a tremendous mission, vision, and values that I am really excited to share. This group has, we are having some slide difficulty. This group has worked really hard to put these together. Our mission around the WOC is to develop a generation of inclusive women who give back to their communities and empower others to be leaders. It's really interesting to gather women together and to see the tremendous innovation, the tremendous ideas, the synergies, the support that come. And that's really what we're about, is really creating an inclusive space where women can really help support one another. Our vision is to really increase the earning potential for women in business. This doesn't necessarily mean being a business owner, but women in business, whether you work for someone, whether you're just starting out your career, whether you're at the tail end of your career or anywhere in between, and certainly includes entrepreneurs across the board. And we're gonna help to increase that earning potential through empowerment, education, and elevation. Our values that we're built upon in this council are women who stand with and for one another. And we wanna be able to set the example for future female leaders to come, cultivating and fostering inclusive environments of transparency, trust, and advocacy. So we're really excited at this point in time to be able to share the WOC with you. And during this pandemic time when everything in life is virtual, it certainly doesn't stop us from being able to drive tremendous content and value to our community. Having said that, let's get into our introductions for today's content. So up first, we have Jean Tully, who is a psychotherapist. She's been helping individuals reach their goals with essential highlights and guidance for the past decade. She replaces clinical babble with pragmatic solutions to attain a rewarding life. Her primary goal is to alter debilitating patterns that inhibit sustainable progression. and she's improved the lives of many people and strives to instill resilient mindset in others. So I'm very excited to turn the mic over here to Jean.
Thank you so much. I'm really, really honored to be part of this event. And I'll be honest, I don't do a whole lot of public speaking or participation in local organizations because I'm usually working, but this organization really resonated with me, not only because I'm a woman, but it's all about the general progression of people, which is really my main goal of my practice in general. And I mean, we can all face facts that the past 6 weeks have been more than trying. We're in unprecedented territory and really wondering what to do next. You know, I work with a multitude of people and different types of problems. And prior to 6 weeks ago, I was dealing with every kind of psychosis you could think of or typical problem that, you know, you hear people encounter in their lives, whether it be marital problems, career development, anxiety, depression, more serious psychological diagnoses. And then, you know, 6 weeks ago, no matter what I was working with any of my clients, the pandemic hit. And it's been remarkable to see the shift in every session I've had since then. You know, I've held well over 300 sessions in the past 6 weeks. And it just became so clear so quickly that whatever psychological issues people were dealing with prior to COVID-19, that they were officially on steroids. And the veneer of the psychosis for everyone had been lifted. Everybody was feeling very raw and vulnerable and lost their filter, even though they were doing their best to hide it. And the common denominator in every single case that I've worked on over the past 6 weeks has been anxiety. And anxiety can present itself in many different ways. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're having panic attacks or in a constant state of worry. It can be translated through other types of emotions such as anger or depression, loneliness, flat out rebellion to any sort of conformity, resistance towards change, or still just a general ignorance towards reality. And navigating through the myriad of reactions to this pandemic has been overwhelming for every one of us, including myself. You know, I've personally experienced it. I'm a big runner, and it's one of my guilty pleasures. And every time I've gone out for a run, I've been either struggling with anxiety, just in the sense of, am I being compliant, trying to run with a mask, which is not easy. It's kind of like being asthmatic without having asthma. And then also dealing with just the complete negligence of others at the same time. So really ebbing and flowing between feeling fear at times and then just frustration with saying, well, if nobody is really paying attention to what we should be doing, where does this get us? And it's so easy for that to become a runaway train, which is really what I wanted to talk about today. You know, typically when I work with people who are suffering from any form of anxiety, I sit there and I try to really help them actually distinguish what is fantasy from reality. Because in most cases, anxiety is all about fabricating stories in our minds that haven't yet come to fruition or don't exist. And they relate to a lot of our life experiences that we haven't really confronted, or also some of the role models that have affected us throughout our development. You know, and the most difficult part of this situation is that there is a viable threat, and that the struggle is real. This is not a fabricated story. and there is a legitimate danger. However, there is a choice on whether or not you want to join in with the hysteria. And the hysteria associated with COVID-19 can be mitigated. This is the first time in just about every one of our lives, at least everybody on this phone call, where we've faced an unprecedented global crisis. There's nowhere to run to. We can't take a trip somewhere. We can't go to another country. We can't even get on a plane. And, how could anyone possibly be prepared to process the magnitude of that situation? And with those kinds of limitations is where the hysteria sets in. I've had conversations, many hundreds of conversations, where what's really getting in the way of people making progress during this times is the absolutes in which they're going to. I've heard statements such as, I don't think I will ever go back to work again, or has my profession become obsolete, or is, the economy is just never going to come back. It's been personally damaged, or I'm never going to see my friends and family again. And that part is not possible. That part is feeding the hysteria. Everyone has a future ahead of them, regardless of the current obstacles that stand in front of us today. And this will pass. And I do believe that there's actually an opportunity in this very moment to learn more about what we want out of life in general. The blinders have been forced to come off, and everybody's sitting there stepping back and saying, well, what does my life look like? And how often do we actually have the opportunity to do that kind of work? Do you have that slide, the next slide that I had put up? The slide will be up in a second, but I work with a healthcare worker, and everybody may have seen this slide. I mean, this has been all over the internet. I actually just saw it on a feed on one of the local community sites today. And a healthcare worker who I'm working with, who's on the front lines of COVID-19 in Mount Sinai in Brooklyn, had sent this to me, and it had been distributed among the healthcare workers. And, she has, just to give you a little context there, she's been sitting in a hospital now for 6 weeks and been appointed to many different kinds of jobs that she never intended to have, such as a body collection point, being in the natal ICU unit, and then being with COVID-19 patients, wondering if she's putting any of those potential populations in danger. She's really been through the ringer, and she had sent this to me to show me how they're actually trying to help the healthcare workers navigate this level of uncertainty. And what really resonated with me about this slide is that there is an opportunity for growth. And when you look at this slide, you've got the fear zone, the learning zone, and the growth zone. And there are many people that are still in the fear zone. And that's regardless if the refrigerators are full, or if they've managed to reunite with their loved ones, or even if they're making an income. There are many people that are sitting in the fear zone, maniacally focused on every limitation that they have right now, versus any sort of opportunity that can come to fruition from this pandemic. And with that being said, it's really interfering with the ability to be constructive and develop a plan in this process. And it really, if you step back from the whole situation, I mean, this has been going on since the beginning of time. We just really haven't been a part of it. I mean, this is a natural process of evolution. And adaptation is essential in getting through to the new normal, no matter what situation any one of us is in. And I think the really positive news is that growth is possible during this time of uncertainty. I've worked with people that have really been struggling and have also experienced some losses or fatalities in their family, and finding meaning and purpose within those experiences. And I've also worked with people who have not necessarily been completely impacted by COVID-19 from a physiological perspective, but that have also learned how to pivot and thrive in one sense or another. I'll just give you a couple of stories. I'm working with someone who took up virtual dating, and he's pretty convinced he might have met the love of his life. I'm working with people who own small businesses in the area who are stepping back and saying, maybe I didn't have that right the first time, or maybe there's a better way to do it where I actually enjoy my life more and can even be more successful in the process. I'm working with people who are considering going back to school and reinventing themselves entirely and actually getting grants and different types of loans and subsidization based on their situation. And, at a real basic level, I'm also working with some people who have just hit the pause button and that are on these house party sites or happy hour sites or gaming sites with their friends and just enjoying the downtime. And these examples are really indicative of how you can have a growth phase during a time of uncertainty. And the biggest question I keep getting asked is, well, how do I do that? And, I can't really specifically talk to anybody specifically on this call because I'm not familiar with your individual challenges right now. But what I can tell you is that the problems that the majority of problems that people are facing today are the same exact problems that they were facing prior to COVID-19. The only thing that has changed is the intensity of the original issues. And this is a real forced moment to take advantage of if you put some serious thought into what you want out of your life. And you step back and you say, well, what is this going to be like when you step outside when this is all over? And a re-entry strategy is really important from both many different perspectives, particularly psychological, and what that looks like for each and every one of us. And, in my opinion, in the grand scheme of things, this is a very finite period of time in comparison to the longevity of our lives, which can be leveraged to really develop a more satisfying future. And I'm by no means trying to simplify that process in obtaining clarity, because, to be honest with you, the people that have thrived the most that I've worked with during the pandemic are the ones who have been through crisis after crisis after crisis in their lives. They've been conditioned for it. The people who are feeling the most unsafe right now are individuals who really haven't had to necessarily demonstrate a tremendous amount of resilience for one reason or another. And resilience is the most essential concept that needs to be leveraged at this very moment. And I'm not trying to simplify that process. I'm not indicating that this is an easy thing to attain. But what I am suggesting is that if you head into the growth zone and you look at your life in present day and what you want in the future, and you look for different ways to adapt, it will get you out of this feeling of being idle. And, lastly, I don't want to spend a lot of time preaching here or grandstanding. There's absolutely no shame in getting help to do so if you're feeling like you're just stuck, because it's only completely natural to be overwhelmed at this time with a lot of pressure to get it right if you feel like you had it wrong before. And we, at the end of the day, we're all flawed humans and need a little assistance from time to time, and there's no shame in getting some sort of help in which you find beneficial to moving forward. And I'd be happy to answer any questions at the end of this, but what I really wanted to do was just kind of do more of a mental health PSA and saying that, you're not alone, and everything you're feeling is completely understandable. And if you are feeling stuck and not knowing how to really leverage this period of time and make it more of an opportunity, reach out and get some help. And I think Josephine is going to take over from here and talk about some real tactical ways to create some sort of order and structure during this chaotic time.
Jean, thank you so very much for sharing that. That's certainly truly tremendous. And I'm sure that I can already see a couple of questions coming in. And there were some really profound things that were said. And thank you for acknowledging how hard it is and for giving us some growth zone area to look forward to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, Josephine Page, is a coach, productivity coach, and a time management consultant. So she is a space strategist, a speaker, productivity, and time management consultant for over 20 years. She's the owner of Pinch Hitter Professional Organizing and Productivity Solutions. Her primary location is in Jersey City, and she also has other locations in Hoboken, Newark, Brooklyn, and Manhattan. And so without further ado, we present Josephine.
What I'm going to try to help. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What we're going to talk about and what I'm going to try to help you do today is address your feelings of overwhelm and stress. We all are going through the same thing. We are all trying to figure out for the first time how to deal with something that basically hasn't happened in 100 years. And so almost no one's alive who's dealt with this. And it's new and it's challenging for all of us, but it is particularly challenging for families with children. And so we're going to talk about how to address these one particular issue and around, excuse me, working at home with kids and COVID-19. Next screen. Okay. Are you feeling overwhelmed and stressed? Under the circumstances, there are many reasons for feeling stressed and overwhelmed, but today we're going to focus on only one reason. And that reason is your work at home plan and how it addresses the personalities in your household. What we want to achieve is a work at home plan that helps you diminish the feelings of overwhelm and stress and improve your productivity and time management. Next slide. The major components of a well thought out plan are the following. Build in your time for priorities. You have two sets of priorities, your personal priorities and your professional priorities. Identify, there is something, can you go to the next screen, please? Okay. This is the Eisenhower time matrix, and I use this often with my clients who are trying to address what is a priority in their lives and what is not a priority in their lives. This matrix has 4 quadrants, and what you'll do with it is you will identify in the first quadrant what is important and urgent, and then in the second quadrant, what is important and not urgent, and in the third quadrant, what's not important but urgent, and in the fourth quadrant, not important and not urgent. What you really want to focus on is the first, second, and third quadrant. Those are, the first and second quadrant are things that you have to do. In the first quadrant, they're things that you have to do immediately. In the second quadrant, things you have to do, but you can decide when you want to do them. And in the third quadrant, my favorite quadrant, are things that you need to decide who can you give them to do these tasks and responsibilities. And finally, the fourth quadrant are tasks and responsibilities that it doesn't matter at this time, if you never did them, they really would not affect the quality of your life. Would you go back to the previous screen? Thank you. So it's important that you figure out what's most important to you. What's most important to you in your personal life, what's most important to you in your professional life, or what are priorities and who's going to do them, you or someone else. In your planning, a well thought out plan, you want to include time for interruptions and the unexpected. These are things that happen to you even if you were working at your workplace. But now when you are juggling live, your personal life and your professional life at the same time, you really need to plan for interruptions. So when you are building a plan, you want to block out some time that's going to be blank time that you can filter in during the day, unexpecteds and interruptions. It's okay to say no. Can you go back to the previous screen, please? It's okay to say no. Be selective about what you agree to do. Your time is incredibly precious right now. And so you are going to have to decide what you agree to do and what can wait later, and maybe what you can't do at all. It's important that you try to keep your plan as close to your pre-pandemic routine. That means things like mealtimes, bedtime, homework sessions, playtime, and all of the other work and school-related tasks and responsibilities that you have. Be sure to insert foreseen professional responsibilities. Everything that you normally do on a regular day at work, put it into your plan. Block those times in so that if you're having conflicts with the other members of your family, partner, spouse, your older children, your younger children, if you're living with other generational family members, you need to include all of those members' activities for the day into your plan so that you have a snapshot of what's happening that day. There's something that most of us take for granted, and I want to really kind of talk about that for a minute, and it is meals. When your normal routine for many of us when we are working is to get up, get dressed, leave the house, have a meal, have breakfast. Many of us take our children with us and have breakfast out, and then you go to work and they go to school. For most of us today, under this stay-at-home order, we are finding that we're doing much more cooking at home because there's no reason to go out and have breakfast. Lunch, which is a meal that we almost never have at home except maybe on the weekend, we're finding that we're having at home. Many more snacks, all of us are snacking more, and we need to plan for meals. One of a huge time waster is trying to figure out what are we going to eat, what's the kids going to eat. There's all this time is spent, what are we going to have for breakfast, what are they going to have for snacks, what are we going to have for lunch. Those daytime meals need to be included in your plan. Yes, that's a separate plan. You need to create a meal plan. You need to make sure that you are grocery shopping and that all of these things are in your home so you don't find yourself planning on a meal and then finding you don't have ingredients. Time is critical, and so you are going to need to do a lot more planning now under this new normal than you have ever done before. I also want to say to you, in your plan, allow time for each person in your household to have alone time. Can I have the next screen, please? The next one. Next. No, come back, communicate. Okay, communication. Communication is critical. You absolutely should be upfront with your boss about your situation at home. This is a time when being open about your home situation, your home setup is going to be critical, because otherwise it's going to interfere in how you get your job done. You don't want to set expectations for your boss based on what you did at work and find that home is different and you can't exactly produce the way you did at work. You want to set boundaries. You want to set boundaries for your family members, your boss, and your colleagues. And you especially want to explain to your children that you're home, but you have to work. And let your kids know when they can talk to you and when they can't. Finally, in terms of communicating, you want to review your plan weekly. And in some cases, you may need to review this plan on a daily basis. If it becomes necessary, don't feel like you are a failure, that you are not that you're not a good parent. You are doing the best you can under the circumstances. And as you flow through this process on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis, you are going to have to tweak your plan so that it works for all the personalities in your home. I want you to remember that the way to diminish stress and overwhelm is to include all the members of your household in this plan. And if you have older children, you really need to bring them into the communication and the collaboration portion of creating this plan. They are at the age where they will have their own opinion, and this is the perfect time for you to acknowledge their difference in personalities, that they think and have different wants than you, and it's important that you include them in your plan. Next screen, please. Assign a dedicated workspace for you and space for your children. And what that means is, if you're going to, because you need to develop a routine that is as close to your pre-pandemic routine, you want to establish a workplace. So before COVID-19, you went to work and you sat at the same desk every day and you did your job. The same thing for the kids. Your kids went to school and they sat at their assigned desks and they did whatever they're required to do at school. You need to establish the same kind of routine at home that as you do if you were back at work and they were back at school. This will give them a sense of normalcy, and it's critical to maintain stability and a sense of security for you and your children. You want your new normal to become a habit. Next screen, please. Try not to multitask. And what I mean by that is try, and I'm not saying that you can, but try to separate parenting from professional responsibilities. And what I mean is segregate your time. And that's why I'm suggesting that you create a plan and that you put it on paper so that everyone in the family knows what's happening, when it's happening, and who's doing it. And I know this sounds tedious, but I assure you, if you have a plan the stress, the overwhelm, the chaos will feel much more orderly, and it will be less. And you're never going to have a perfect scenario, but there is, if you attempt to create a plan that works, and if you also understand that no plan is going to be perfect, that you are going to need to tweak it, it's not going to work for everyone, you're going to have to make adjustments. If you understand and accept that, you will begin to feel less stress and less overwhelmed. Next screen, please. Take advantage of nap and quiet time. And when I say that, I mean, if you have projects that you need to accomplish and you need focus and no interruptions, do it while your children are napping or while they are involved in something that you know they will have their focus on. I have a 3.5-year-old granddaughter, and when I'm driving, all my phones have a place on it called Olivia's Corner. And in Olivia's Corner, I have all these apps that are age appropriate for her. And she says, Grandma, where's my phone? And I give her her phone, and she knows the only thing she's going to touch. She does not touch anything else. She's not interested in anything else. She's only interested in Olivia's Corner. I can drive, and when I'm working here and she's here with me, I do the same thing. I give her the phone. They're all learning apps. None of it's, just frivolous apps. They're all things that will teach her something, and she will sit and play with them. And she's 3, but this is also true for older children. If they are focused on something that actually is relatable to them, they will have very little interest in interrupting you. Next screen, please. Provide age-appropriate activities that require little supervision. And by that, I mean you want to provide them with activities that is going to give you time to do the things that you need to do that are work-related, that require your focus and attention. And I don't have a page in the slides, but I'm just going to read some examples for you. And so these, again, are age-appropriate activities that require little supervision. Of course, nap time for babies, swings, bouncy chairs, apps, musical songs for toddlers through elementary, their favorite shows and related online games. And as I said earlier, create a little corner, a little, what do you call that? Those, a folder on your home screen with just apps that you approve of and that your children, even your elementary school children, you approve of them using, or if they have their own phone, do the same thing. And then they will have something that they can work on besides schoolwork, because you want to break up schoolwork. You guys are not homeschoolers. You didn't decide, oh, I'm going to keep my kids home and I'm going to homeschool them. Society, this fate has made you homeschoolers. So don't beat up yourself. Make this as easy and as simple as possible. And for older kids, things like reading, writing, educational, positive, or inspirational shows or movies, videos, the various school platforms, and of course, their friends. So everything needs to be doled out incrementally. And of course, all the children who are of school age need to complete their assigned schoolwork, but that's going to take a lot less time than what normally happens. So they're not going to be doing schoolwork from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's probably going to take 4 or 5 hours instead of 6 or 7 or 8 hours. So you're going to have to fill in their time. And the best way to do that is to give them things that they want, that they like doing, and that you don't have to supervise. Next screen, please. This is some tools that you can use to make working and schooling at home more productive. So if the 3-sided corrugated presentation board is not my idea, I actually got it from another productivity coach who recommended this, and I thought it was a great idea. What this is for is to use this to create little cubicles for the children and yourself if you are home working and it's more than yourself there, you can, and you're feeling like there's going to be some distraction, then you can actually use these corrugated presentation boards to create little divided areas for each individual. What I want to show you is, let's see if I can put this. Okay, these are some construction pages that I have created, and you can put them on the board, or if you have the luxury of your own office or room at home, and the kids can use this as well. And these are non-verbal signals. And of course, this one is, you can interrupt me if you want, I'm available. This one is interrupt me only if it's an emergency. And this is, I cannot be interrupted under any circumstances. And if you have this up, you don't have to go directly to green. If in fact it's something that you feel doesn't warrant your attention immediately, then say to them, put up the yellow one, and if it's an emergency, let them decide. The time clock is an analog clock for children who will decide whether or not, so that when they're studying, they can actually see how much time has been used for a particular subject. Next page, please. Younger kids. The difference between younger kids and older kids, next page, please, are two basic things. Older kids want to be in touch with their friends. So give them the space to connect with their friends. Their friends, if you have older children, you know that they mean everything to them, and they are going through some very serious emotional challenges being isolated from their friends. So make sure that you give them the time they need to connect with their friends. Also, know that younger kids need to get out and need to have recess and exercise time. Those are the things that are important to them. And so now I'm talking about exercise. Make sure that the kids do get out and exercise. This is important for them. This was a video of my granddaughter in her pajamas in the middle of the day. It's probably 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and she's exercising with some poles she found in her house. And I always say, next screen, please. Don't sweat the small stuff. If they want to be in their pajamas all day, let them be in the pajamas all day. If they want to jump all over the bed, whatever they want to do, let them do it. And most of all, remember that your kids or your child, if they're an only child, doesn't have access to their friends anymore the way they used to. And so it's important that you allow them the freedom to express themselves the way they can at home, and you as well. Next screen, please. Make downtime for yourself. You don't be hard on yourself. If you need to get out and run, walk, talk to your friends, look at TV, listen to music, read, take a shower, cry, take a pillow and scream into it, Do whatever you need to do so that you can get through the next moment. Don't be hard on yourself. My daughter says she prioritizes sanity over structure. So regardless of what's going on, she wants to maintain her sanity. So some days there's structure and some days there isn't. So don't believe that every day, every moment of every day has to be structured. It doesn't have to be. Can I just see that reach out for support page, the one before? If you're feeling like this is overwhelming and you feel like you've tried everything and it's still not working, don't feel like there's something wrong with you because you need support. There's religious support. You can reach out to your friends. There's professional counseling. There's people like myself, productivity coaches. Do what you need to do to get the help and the support that you need to help. And at the end of the day, please give yourself some encouragement. High five, you've done it. No matter what's happened that day, you've gotten through it. And don't be hard on yourself. If this new normal isn't working for you, I'm available to assist you in designing and executing a plan that works for the personalities in your household. Thank you.
Josephine, thank you so very much. That was fantastic and quite a lot of information.
Thank you.
Both have armed us with a great deal to think about. And I know that even as we were starting this webinar, there were a number of attendees that had children running around in the background and are dealing with some of these very issues. I mean, as a result of this, our lives have shifted and we're all dealing with a lot of new environments and new interruptions. So this, both of these presentations were very timely. So now we're going to open it up briefly for some Q&As. So I see we have a couple of questions in the chat. And if anyone else has any questions, we can go ahead and you can unmute yourself and ask some questions. So I'll read first from the chat one of the questions that came in. When your original plan goes off track, what's the best way to get back on track and get back into a productive mindset? So maybe you guys can each take that.
From my own personal experience, when it's kind of like when you go on a weight loss plan or some sort of life altering change plan, in my opinion, what's getting in the way of that plan is the resistance towards change, which means you need to work on your psychology.
I'm going to say that if you get off track, that's perfectly normal. Again, we've got a new normal. And the best thing to do is just start all over again. If you're happy with the plan and if you need to tweak it because maybe something else has happened that you didn't consider when you were designing this plan, again, don't beat yourself up, tweak your plan, and then start all over again. You may have to tweak it many times, but there's nothing wrong with that. That's what you do when you are designing a plan and you've never done something before.
Absolutely, thank you. And another question we have, how do we get or stay in the growth zone?
You keep doing the work on yourself. To Josephine's point, plans were meant to be revised. But the bigger question is, every time you try to implement a plan in your life, regardless of COVID-19, has it been a struggle? And if it has been a struggle, then you have a resistance towards order. And then that stems from a much deeper place than the simple task of building a plan. And I know it's hard for me to answer these questions in great detail, but you really have to look at the patterns as well as the tactics.
Great. Another question that we have here is, how do we help our partners see that we need a better system?
Okay. If you have a partner who thinks that everything is fine, if that is that person's typical personality, understand they're not going to change, okay? You can set up some examples and present these examples to them a little at a time. So let's say they agreed to do meals, cook meals on Tuesdays for the family, and they're not doing it, and it doesn't work, and you find yourself doing it. You need to, then you want to sit and talk to them about it and see if there's a way that, is there something going on with the plan that doesn't work for them? Are they saying, maybe they agreed to something, to doing something that they in fact really don't want to do, but they didn't want to tell you? So you being honest with them and saying to them, you agreed to do this and it's not happening. What can we do to make this work? It's the same kind of conversation you would have if you were at work and you were working with a colleague that wasn't doing their part. You're going, don't get angry. Don't lose it. Go, as I said, if you're to pick up a pillow and scream into it and then calm down, or take 50 deep breaths and short breathing out, calm down, talk to your partner and say, how can we fix this? Or can we trade this off? If this is something you don't like, I'll do it, and then you'll do something I don't like, but I agreed to doing.
Thank you very much. That's great. Another question that we have here is, as a manager, how can you address certain team members that are not fully engaged in work? Are you able to tell because they're not active on their laptop?
Jean, you want me to address that?
Sure.
Okay. If you think that they're not being productive, this really depends on if this is somebody who reports to you, or if this is a colleague, or if this is your boss. It really depends on where in the hierarchy this person is. So I'm going to just address people on the same level, because that's really hard, and your boss. Those are the two hard ones. So if there is something going on that, if you feel like your boss is not pulling their weight, instead of saying that to your boss, you might want to talk to your boss about what's not happening. Instead of saying you're not completing your part of the report, say, I completed my part of the report, and give it to that person. And then just say, and I need the whole report back on X date. And then you're going to have to set up some time intervals where you're going to check back with your boss in a very professional way and find out if they have completed the part that they're doing. It's a colleague, if the person is on the same level, they don't report to you, it's pretty much the same kind of conversation. If you are talking to someone who is on your same level, or you report to, you have no authority. So there is no real way to get someone to do something that they are floundering in. But if you talk to them about what you're doing, and there's a deadline and an expectation, then you are not pointing the finger at them, you are focusing on the ultimate goal instead. And so that's what I would focus on, the ultimate goal, and not the person and what they're not doing. I do want to warn you, if you work with people who do not know how to handle this scenario because they don't have anyone supervising them, it is problematic. If it's not your boss and it is a peer, then I would not go to my boss and just say, Jane isn't doing her job. I would just say to my boss indirectly, this part of the project is done. We're waiting for this part, and maybe we can have a conference call with this person who's not doing their part, and we can talk, and let's discuss and set up a timeline for that particular individual to complete their portion of the project. It's got to be diplomatic.
Yeah.
At some point, you're going to go back into an office and have to deal with this person one-on-one, and you don't want to make this complicated.
Thank you, Josephine. That was great. I think we have time for one last question. And if each of you could briefly answer, what are the top 3 things that we can do to take care of our mental health during these times? More along the lines of daily self-care tips. So just a top 3. Jean, would you like to kick it off?
Sure. I would say, reinventing some sense of community or support network is really important in times like these. As far as I think exercise is essential, and, really nourishing your body if you're going to take attend to the 3 basics.
That's great. Thank you.
And as I said in my presentation, don't be hard on yourself. Make time for yourself is the number 1 thing that you can do for yourself, and make some alone time. That's the number 2. So time for yourself is having a break, but some alone time is something you really need, and you need to do it during the day, not just at the end of your day. And finally, if you feel that your situation is out of control, find somewhere that you can get some support. That's critical, because once you're getting some support, I guess like the kind of support, one of the options is like Jean, you'll be able to talk to someone that's outside of your household who can help you see things differently.
Thank you. That's great. I mean, we are very most grateful to both of you guys for speaking about this, and it's very interesting because you both addressed, Jean, you really addressed the internal aspect of what this pandemic and the effects of it are doing on us psychologically, and Josephine, you gave some really practical tips for really managing the environment and the time that we have, which might now be impacted and limited and changed. So these are all really helpful. Thank you, ladies, very much. Before we officially wrap up here, I'd like to take a moment and share with you guys who are the council for the WOC. These ladies have worked tirelessly behind the scenes, and I could not have done this without any of them. Heidi, Diana, Lissa, Jordania, Kylie, Andrea, and Melissa. You guys have been absolutely fantastic in putting this together. As I briefly shared, the WOC is a council that's really dedicated towards empowering women and helping women to succeed and create some economic opportunity through advancement. As we move forward, the WOC, post-COVID-19, when life sort of finds its new normal and things open up, we're looking forward to having a great number of in-person events and live programs for you. Until then, we will certainly be providing programs virtually on Zoom over the next couple of months, or the foreseeable future. So you can look forward to having a new program from the WOC every 3 weeks. We'll be sharing something. Just some food for thought for those of you that are on the call. Some of the things that we really are striving to dive into for the Women of Commerce Council is really targeting topics and conversations that specifically affect women in their lives, in their business, and a combination of both. Talking about raises, talking about standing out within being able to differentiate yourselves in a male-dominated industry or company, perhaps. Being able to, somewhat like Josephine shared, juggle the challenges and demands of maybe running your own business and also running your own family, or perhaps the challenges and dynamics of being a single mom and also the primary breadwinner. topics around your business advancement and business development and tools. So we're really looking to dive into a lot of topics that I'm sure for many of us are very close to home, and that as we have continued along our journey as women, have affected us in one way or another. Certainly today's program was very timely because we are currently experiencing a great deal of pressure. And one of the synergies that I heard in both of the topics that were shared today really spoke loudly of giving yourself permission to get help. And I heard that echoed loudly both in Jean's presentation and in Josephine's presentation. And, you know, it's important that we recognize that there is a change happening that is indeed affecting us, and that it's okay to reach out and get help so that we can be better and so that we can improve. So I wanted to take a moment and thank everybody on the council for all their work. Our next program is going to be Thursday, May 14th, and we're going to be talking about pivoting our businesses, whether you're an owner or whether you're working in a business post-COVID-19. And we're going to be featuring some PR and marketing spotlight. So we're going to be talking about how to use PR and marketing to really help advance initiatives. For more information and to be connected and stay connected with the Women of Commerce in Hudson County, please contact Melissa Rosario. Certainly, we're happy to give out these slides, I believe, after the presentation, and you'll have our contact information. Please do not hesitate to reach out to Jean and Josephine. They have both made themselves available as tremendous resources in their field of expertise. And, you know, again, getting that support is that first step in really being able to start turning things around. If there are any other questions, we'll leave the chat room open for a little bit, but officially, I believe this is going to end our session. We thank you all for your time and thank you for taking the time to be with us today, and we hope this was extremely valuable. So thank you.